Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Wizard of War for the Atari 2600. In this 1982 elimination action game from CBS, your wary warriors wield their weapons to waylay the wicked ways of the Wizard of War and his winged warlock as you work your way through winding walls and warps of the, dungeons. I ran out of words that start with W. In any case, this is a pretty straightforward single-screen maze-style game where you clear dungeons by defeating all the monsters that appear inside. Blue Burr Wars materialize first and are always visible. Yellow Gar Wars blink on and off and appear after the Burr Wars, and Red Thor Wars are invisible most of the time and enter the dungeon last. Luckily, a small radar at the bottom of the screen shows the location of each monster on the map, even if you can't see them in the maze itself. Monsters are destroyed by a single hit from your laser, but they can shoot back at you too, so it's best to take them out from behind, like a true coward. To be honest, my main strategy in this game was trying to camp out in safe spots like a coward and just wait for the monsters to run right into my firing line, because I have no shame when I'm chasing high scores. Camping out in the right place is tricky though, since you can only fire one laser at a time, so shooting down a long corridor leaves you vulnerable until the blast hits a wall, or more ideally, an enemy. And it's hard to know where new monsters will materialize, so your safe spot might actually be the spawn point for a dungeon creature, in which case, it's not a safe spot, but you won't know that until it's too late. The same goes for camping out near warps on the right and left hand walls. When they open up every few seconds, you can travel to the opposite end of the screen, but the monsters can too, so they might just sneak up on you from behind just like it did to them. Cruel karma for the careless coward. There is a point in the game where you can't rely on safe spots anyway though. After you've cleared certain mazes, a bat-like thing called the Warlock appears and flies toward the warp exits. If you blast it before it escapes, you get double points on the next maze, which is borderline mandatory for getting a decent score. The Wizard of War himself also shows up after certain mazes are cleared, and he just disappears and reappears all over the place, shooting magic beams until either you blast him or he blasts you. This is definitely the most novel aspect of the game because it's essentially a boss fight, and those rarely exist in early Atari titles. Although, the way he blinks on and off, randomly teleporting everywhere, makes winning the battle feel more like a matter of luck than skill, which is the one thing I'd change about this game. It's not my fault if I get killed just by standing where the wizard happens to materialize. Like I said earlier, I'm a total coward here, so you can bet I'd be running in the opposite direction if I knew where the scary wizard was going to show up. That's why my favorite part of the game is the Warlock segments. I like hunting down the bat because he never disappears, and he doesn't attack me back. And if I fail to catch him, the only penalty is missing out on points for the next maze, not instant death like with the monsters or the wizard. The more I analyze the audio-visual aesthetic of Wizard of War, the more I love it. I'm already a fan of blocky, monochrome character sprites, and the fact that the set here feels so refined and full of personality only serves to wistfully wire my wizard-wooed brain into wanting more. And the music, as simple as it may be, does a fantastic job of building tension. Not only is the opening dungeon tune foreboding enough to make me fear for my life in the face of harmless pixels on a TV screen, but I'm willing to bet the silly two-note pattern that increases tempo as the enemies speed up raises my heart rate enough to further endanger my genetic predisposition towards high blood pressure. Wizard of War can be pretty hard when you're dealing with faster and faster disappearing monsters, but CBS's own challenge score for the game isn't all that difficult to achieve. Apparently, they offered mail-away prize medals for players who scored above 30,000 back in the 80s, and even though it took me plenty of tries, I managed to break that barrier. Don't think the mail-in is still valid 40 years later though, which is almost as disappointing as giving myself high blood pressure over a 6x8 pixel wizard. Overall, Wizard of War warrants a weighty win of worthiness among the wares of my waning, backlog. In other words, it's fun, and I'm glad I finally played it.